Instead, the SIU says it has obtained evidence showing the money was redirected and shared among the individuals who run the syndicates in a manner consistent with money laundering patterns. The SIU adds that during today's ongoing search and seizure operation, bank statements, computers and cell phones are being confiscated. Ndogozo Khumalo, Eyewitness News.
A sitting of interviews for the next Director of Public Prosecutions has heard that a complaint has been lodged against one of the panelists. Today is the second day of interviews where 3 candidates will be facing questions from an advisory panel. The term of current NPA head Shamila Batoyi ends next month. This morning, Justice Minister Mamoloko Kubai started proceedings by announcing a statement from the Amalgamated Lawyers Association flagging the candidacy of Nkosana Mvundlela, the president of the Black Lawyers Association. But like the DA's threat to interdict the hearings yesterday, Kubai has dismissed the association's statement.
I want to urge South Africans to allow the panel to do its work so that we can conclude the work. Some of these things are becoming just an unnecessary distraction that we do not need. So with that, we will proceed to our candidates.
The Department of Basic Education says it will communicate directly with the 7 schools and learners implicated in a Matric exam paper leak. This after an internal investigation found anomalies during the marking process. The department discovered that the leak involved 26 matriculants from 7 schools. Basic Education Minister Sivyo Gwahube says their probe found candidates gave similar answers when responding to a novel question on the English Paper 2 exam. A criminal complaint has now been opened against basic education officials as well as a parent allegedly involved in the scandal. Gwahube made that announcement this morning during a press briefing in Parliament.
And this is quite important, that we're not only just following our own internal processes of the suspension of these employees within the DBE, but there are criminal elements of being in possession of stolen material of the state. And as a result, we have made sure that this matter has been reported as of yesterday with the South African Police Service.
Please note the following story contains some disturbing details which may be distressing to some listeners. A man is expected to appear in the Wynberg Magistrates Court today in connection with the murder of a pregnant woman. It's believed the suspect was the boyfriend of 23-year-old Shanice Rudolph. The woman's body was found this week just days after she was reported missing. Lauren Isaacs reports.
Shanice Rudolph was reported missing at Steenberg Police Station on Friday. This past Tuesday, her body was found buried in a shallow grave at Klip Road Cemetery in Grassy Park. Shortly after the discovery, police arrested a 42-year-old suspect believed to be the pregnant woman's boyfriend. This tragedy comes as the 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children campaign draws to a close. Last month, thousands of demonstrators took part in a shutdown held in several parts of the country ahead of the G20 summit. This shutdown was a call by NGO Women for Change to highlight the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide in South Africa. Lauren Isaacs, Eyewitness News.
And 2 brothers wanted in connection with a deadly fire at their nightclub in India, in which 25 people died, have been detained in Thailand. The pair fled to Thailand shortly after the blaze earlier this week. The brothers will be sent back to India a day after a court in Delhi refused to grant them protection from arrest. Their lawyer had told the court that they were victims of a witch hunt. The fire took place on Sunday at the club in a busy nightlife area of the tourist state of Goa. Gold is trading at $4,215.71 an ounce. The rand is at $16.91 to the dollar, $22.60 to the pound, $19.78 to the euro, and Brent crude oil is at $62.14 a barrel.
Well, at this stage, if you're heading towards Bedford View, leaving the Edenvale area, there's bumper traffic on the R24 westbound. This is between Edenvale Road and the Kilulis interchange, while in the Mother City, traffic is heavily congested on the N1 inbound. This is approaching Lower Church. There's also bumper traffic on the M3 southbound approaching Clipper Road.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng today. Temperatures have peaked at highs of between 25 and 27 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour, the Special Investigating Unit is carrying out raids in KZN and Gauteng as part of its probe into the alleged theft of 161 million rand from the Unemployment Insurance Fund.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. You're with Mandy Wiener on 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Midday Report with Mandy Wiener on 702 and Cape Talk is brought to you by Nedbank Commercial Banking. Think bigger, think Nedbank Commercial Banking. On the show today, the Department of Basic Education picks up a breach in the Matric exams. Day 2 of NDPP interviews. The SIU carries out raids relating to the TERS COVID-19 corruption. Stats SA releases the Poverty Trends Report. And our book of the week is Imperfect Harmony, a memoir from conductor Kutlwano Masote. All of that over the next hour.
The Midday Report with Mandy Wiener.
Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app, DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Midday Report on 702 and Cape Talk with me, Mandy Wiener. Great to be with you today. We'll bring you the latest on those SIU raids, progress. And the SIU always seems to be one step ahead. They, of course, are not the ones who need to prosecute, but they are the ones that collect evidence. They recommend for prosecuting. And I think that the work that they are doing really is commendable. So those raids taking place in Gauteng and KZN, all related to the COVID-19 temporary employee relief scheme, TERS fraud, worth 161 million rand. We'll bring you the latest on that, at least some progress. And then also, I think it's a good news story that the Education Department has picked up this breach in the exams, the fact that it was detected during the marking process. A criminal complaint has been opened against officials. And in fact, it looks as though the prime suspect is an employee of the Basic Education Department whose child was writing Matric. So that explains what may have happened. It only involves 7 schools and 26 matriculants, so it is isolated, it seems. We'll get the latest on that. But I imagine very concerning for other people that have written Matric, and whether or not there could be a consideration about rewrites and that kind of thing. Nothing to indicate that at this point. But send me a WhatsApp voice note, 072 7021 702. 072-567-1567. If you want to give your views on anything we are speaking about today, you can also tweet me at Mandy Wiener. But today also, day 2 of the interviews for a new National Director of Public Prosecutions. The interviews yesterday running very long, and of course lots of attention around Andrea Johnson's interview into the evening last night. Today, Advocate Qolisile Kanyile has been answering questions. She's the head of the Financial Intelligence Center, and she is one of the 6 candidates. We're then expecting Hermione Cronier, who was the head of IDAC. Very acrimonious departure. So I imagine she'll have a lot to say about Shumila Batoy and the NPA. And then, of course, Menzi Simelane is due to be interviewed later. Julius Malema also about to start a press conference. We'll take you there in a short while. But let's start with Khomotso Modise, EWN reporter, who's at the NDPP interviews. Khomotso, good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for your time today. Take us through the interview this morning of Advocate Qolisile Kanyile.
Good afternoon, Mandy. Well, before we could hear the interview of Advocate Kanyile, proceedings were off to an interesting start. You remember that yesterday it was the DA's letter that was presented before the panel here, really indicating that they have the intention of interdicting the process if it continues with candidates that have been nominated. Today, we've heard from the Minister, Mamuluku Kubai, who's the chair of the proceedings, that an organization, it's called the Amalgamated Lawyers Association, has flagged one of the panelists, and that's the president of the Black Lawyers Association, really saying that they are unhappy with his involvement in this process, and they're also threatening a legal steps or taking legal steps against the process. But again, Minister Mamuluku Kubai dismissed that, Mandy, saying that South Africans should really, avoid interfering in this process or an interference in this process with, points that she believes are moot, and are just acting as a deterrent to the process that's been carrying out. So once that was out of the way, then only then did we hear from Advocate Kanyile, who's been testifying for almost 3 hours, Mandy. And that really has been the general standard for most of the candidates that have been interviewed so far. And she, of course, is from the FIC, as you said, and she's been testifying really from a perspective of combating financial crimes. In a lot of her testimony, she's been making reference to capacitating prosecutors to be able to read and understand bank statements in order to fight financial crime as well as organized crime. But like Andrea Johnson yesterday, Mandy, there's been a challenge with her CV. Some discrepancies in her CV. There's been questions around the dates on her CV. And she's really struggled to answer and give reasons for why her CV does seem to be a little inaccurate. Let's take a listen.
Minister, may I request that we finish with this? You said we'll finish with it. If you don't mind, can we finish? Can we come back to this at the end of the interview?
No, the reason why I had to stop, remember I parked it earlier, so that they give you a copy. Yeah. But the questions that members are posing, it's about your career. Because we base our question with your experience. Remember, we're looking for a National Director of Public Prosecution. We're looking at the experience of National, which provinces you've worked. You have a footprint of understanding NPA broadly, or are you based on that? So it's important as part of our questioning. If you can see where Prof was going, that's why I stopped him, because we had not done this. This is basic. And that's why this information is provided for us up front, for us to prepare. And I was saying to the candidate yesterday, for lawyers, because as a legal person, if you submit something, it's a record. When you appear in court as a lawyer, what you submit to the court is a record of what you are saying. You have signed the form at the back, confirming it to be accurate and correct.
So, Khamotso, we've heard from the advocate for the last 3 hours or so now, that is Advocate Xolisile Kanyile. We're expecting Hermione Cronje and Menzi Simelane later today. Is that expected to go ahead on track in light of the potential interdict by the DA?
Yes, so it's clear that this panel, Mandy, is paying no mind, paying no attention to the threats, of an interdict by the DA. The panel has really just pushed it aside and continued with the work. In fact, it wasn't even considered today. And I think what we now need to wait to see is whether the DA will actually go to court to interdict the process. Of course, from their letter, their main issue is with Menzi Simelane, and they say just having him as a candidate casts doubt on this process. But just to remind you, Mamuluku Kubai yesterday, the minister and the chair of this process, said that the DA's point falls flat and is without merit because Simelane has not been shortlisted, as has been indicated by the DA. He's merely been nominated among the candidates that meet the minimum requirements to be interviewed. And only after today will a shortlisting process then begin, where the names that this panel believe meet the standards for recommendation will then be submitted to the president to be recommended as a potential NDPP. So they're saying the DA's case is without merit and they will not be paying any attention to it.
Khomotso, thank you. Khomotso Modise, EWN reporter at those interviews for a new National Director of Public Prosecutions. Well, let's get some analysis on this now with Dr. Suhaifa Bamji, who's a senior lecturer at the UKZN School of Law. Dr. Bamji, good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for your time. We've now had 1.5 days of interviews. In terms of the work being done by the panel, many have raised concerns about the constitution of this panel. What are your views on the kinds of questions, the line of questioning that we've been seeing from this panel?
Yeah, well, look, if we just look at this morning's line of questioning and also building on from yesterday late afternoon to the evening with Advocate Johnson, were very, very focused on the minute details on the CV, and I think that's quite correct. They have picked up inaccuracies with Johnson's. They began the questioning of Kanyile related to her CV, and based on is she actually a registered member of the bar, those sorts of questions. I don't know if it was time constraints or whatever, but later there weren't probing questions on whether she's makes that criteria, because when you think of what the two criteria are for fit and proper, of course, and secondly, allowed to appear in any of the courts in the Republic. But what this is showing is that they are paying very close attention to what the candidates are submitting. And certainly in Kanile's case, even picking up that she hadn't correctly filled out the form, the forms, yeah.
Quite a few questions around strategy, how they would lead the NPA, whether that would be varied to what Shimula Batoy had done, some of them criticizing Shimula Batoy. How important do you think that aspect is?
But I think it is important, especially given that we've got a history of so let's call it bad luck when it comes to the NDPP and the National Prosecuting Authority, or maybe bad luck is being quite quite gentle, a bit too generous. But it's not money you won't want to put your money on it if you're a betting person. But so what you do want is something different. You want something that is going to be meaningful. And so maybe certainly things to learn from and pick up from, but I wouldn't stick with the entire strategy necessarily. I think you'd want a candidate who can see through the smoke and mirrors, who can see the wood from the trees and have a clear path forward with clear incremental goals, measurable goals, and real, tangible, realistic ones.
When it comes to the rule of law in South Africa, the public respect for the NPA, why is it so important that we have a capable, fit and proper NDPP?
Well, look, if we think about what the NDPP is, it's the prosecuting authority, and if it comes down to the embodiment of one person, the workings and movements of the criminal justice system basically lies in this person's hands, even though they're at the very top and there are designated roles for people at the different levels. The NDPP sets the policy, sets the tone, sets the game plan, about what are we doing, what are we tolerating, what are we not tolerating. So for us, much lower down in the food chain, those of us that are maybe experiencing crime, right, and, as victims of crime or in our neighborhoods, we want it's a hesitant question. Okay, so someone broke into my car and stole my radio. Do I even bother going to the police? Or do I even report it? Because is it even going to get to court? So it's that ripple down effect where you end up with crimes unreported because of this lack of faith in the system. And then you've got the other side of the coin where you've got vigilantism or vigilante justice. With the Operation Dudula case that just came out, I think courts are quite clear that vigilante justice will not be tolerated. But with systemic failures, what we are risking is that a system that we have, we should be owning as a society, it's not serving us the way it should. Yeah.
Dr. Bamji, thank you so much. Dr. Suhaifa Bamji, Senior Lecturer at UKZN School of Law, reflecting there on why this position of National Director of Public Prosecutions is so important.
The Midday Report with Mandy Wiener on 702 and Cape Talk is brought to you by Nedbank Commercial Banking. See money differently.
Real growth needs more than just banking, and Nedbank Commercial Banking is your growth partner. Their team of industry experts understand your business and its potential, offering insight to help you see opportunity where others see obstacles. Because when you can see what others don't, you can do what others can't. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. See money differently. Nedbank is a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
LLB graduates can fast-track their legal career with the Law Society of South Africa's PVT School for Legal Practice. LPC accredited, this 4-month practice-ready course, which is taught by practicing lawyers, can reduce your PVT contract by 12 months for admission. Study by day, after hours, or via distance at campuses nationwide. The first 2026 intake runs from January to April. Applications close 31 October 2025. Apply now at lssalead.org.za. That's lssalead.org.za.
Brush, stroke, paint, color, protect, and admire. From roof paint to exterior textures and interior silk, Warrior Paints has it all. The product range and stylish colors are amazing. And what's more, Warrior Paints has crushed prices for incredible savings. Enjoy that good old-fashioned personal service you deserve. For price, quality, variety, and service, Warrior Paints is street ahead. Warrior Paints, affordable, lasting, luxury.
The Outsurance pointsmen know that every car on the road carries a story. Like the lady who forgot to buy a secret Santa gift for tomorrow's office party. She remembers that she can re-gift that thingy-mabob she got for her birthday. Yes! The Outsurance pointsmen know it's not just a car in traffic. It's a last-minute plan on the move. Happy holidays to every story on the road. You're the reason the Outsurance pointsmen have been doing what they do since 2005. In proud partnership with 702. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP.
WhatsApp Mandy
on 072 702 1702.
Good day, Mandy. Mandy, just a quick one. So the US has resorted to piracy. They are now pirates. They're stealing oil tankers now in the name of America, of sanctions. I thought sanctions was that you cannot trade with America. That's all. Now they have resorted to stealing. So stealing is their new way of life. Why do world leaders keeping quiet about this? Why has no one stood up? Guys, what type of world are we living in when people call themselves leaders and world leaders, yet they're afraid to stand up to one man?
The Midday Report with Mandy Wiener,
winner of the Best News and Actuality Show
at the Telkom Radio Awards.
On the WhatsApp line, Dawn says, "Hi Mandy, perhaps check the pronunciation of Hermione Cronia's name." So I asked her herself when she became the investigating directorate head a couple of years ago. I said, "How do you pronounce your name?" Because when you look at the spelling of it, people assume it's Hermione. Like if you've read Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, you assume that the way that it's spelled is Hermione. It's not. Her mother called her Hermione, so her name is Hermione. And she refers to herself as Hermione. So I know it sounds weird, but just an explanation and I wrote a profile piece on her actually when she was appointed the head of IDAC for News 24. Her name is pronounced Hermione. But thanks for alerting me, or just thanks for checking. I think it's important that I take names very seriously and the pronunciation of names very seriously. So it's important that we always get it right.
702.
The Midday Report with Mandy Wiener.
Let's walk the talk.
The SIU busy with raids and an investigation related to COVID-19 temporary employer relief scheme, TERS fraud with 161 million rand. Raids taking place in Tshwane and KZN today. Let's speak to Kaiser Ganiago, spokesperson for the SIU. Kaiser, good afternoon to you. Thanks very much for your time. Tell us about where you are raiding and why.
Thank you very much, Mandy, and to your listeners. We are raiding about 34 premises between Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. As I speak to you now, I'm in Port Shepstone. And we are at the municipality here where we're looking for one councillor that was involved in the scheme. And then we are looking at all the scheme where about 161 million was siphoned, where companies were submitting bogus names as if they are employees, and then they got the money and they were sharing it among themselves.
So, according to reports, the woman allegedly worked with employees from the UIF to manipulate the TERS payment system. Are you able to give us any more detail about who the alleged kingpin is or what they may have been involved with?
There are different kingpins around this, but the biggest one is a guy they call Mkulu. I don't have his full name now, but the guy is supposed to be in Pietermaritzburg. There's another team that has gone there. They have yet to give us a feedback around whether they found him. And then there was a lady that we went to see earlier today, who was also involved in this distribution of this money. She got for herself about 18 million rand. And then there's also the other one who's the owner of the salon that we went to now, and they got about 15 million rand. And therefore, it's just a lot of money that was circulating. But the impact of this, Mandy, is bigger than that, because they use people's ID numbers to go and claim. And then when these people want to, for example, one of the people came to us to say, I was trying to apply for the 370, this 370 amount, and then it was refused because they say, I'm working, because you am registered under the workers of these people, but I've never seen any money from these people.
So they were creating ghost employees, effectively.
No, definitely. Some of them would go to a community of poor people and get them their IDs indicated that they are looking for people, they will find jobs for them. And then ultimately, well, they don't do that, and then they claim this money.
And Kaiser, obviously what happens now is you would refer this to the NPA for prosecution, right?
No, definitely. For now, we are just trying to get their gadgets, because we have linked them all together so that we are able to then finalize the linkage. And then once that is done, we will then make referrals for prosecution.
Kaiser Kganyago, thank you very much. A spokesperson for the Special Investigating Unit, speaking to us there about these raids being carried out. Progress, always good when there's action. Now, can we convert that into prosecutions?
702, the Midday Report, Monday to Friday.
12 to 1 p.m.
Julius Malema, the leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, is holding a press conference at the moment. This follows on from a meeting of the EFF's leadership. A lot of it, of course, about local government elections, campaign strategy as well. Let's listen in to what Julius Malema is saying.
The EFF is not only maintaining its base, but breaking new ground and gaining votes outside our traditional voter base and within the suburban and middle-class communities. Our desks, namely the EFF Gender-Based Violence Desk and the EFF Labor Desk, continue to be avenues where our people receive the necessary assistance when they fall victim to gender-based violence, failure by law enforcement to follow up on cases, and within regard to labor, the Labor Desk has become a place of refuge for workers. The EFF remains the only organization that holds the President of the Republic of South Africa accountable, while most of the political parties audition for a seat at the GNU table. The Phala matter, which was covered up using a parliamentary majority in an irrational manner that undermines the Constitution, is still at the Constitutional Court, a year after the EFF took it on review. This goes against the norms and standards of our courts, which dictate that judgments must be handed down within 3 months of a matter being heard. The EFF correctly led the Phala march to the Concord to demand the release of the judgment, and the continued delay justifies claims by those who say the judiciary is compromised and captured, and if the final arbiter allowed the President of the Republic to be above the law, then that will signal the end of our democracy. We congratulate the PCT of Gauteng for bringing out not less than 25,000 members to march against this matter, because without the masses on the ground, these victories will never be won. This was a first task of the sub-regional structures of the EFF in Gauteng to deliver the masses to the march against Phala, and this was successfully executed by the sub-regional structures of the EFF as a confirmation and a proof that this resolution is going to work for the organization. The 6th administration of Parliament has become an arena of excellence for the EFF. In 2026, we will intensify all efforts to ensure that the people of South Africa know that they did not waste their votes when they elected the EFF to represent them.
Julius Malema, the leader of the EFF there, speaking at that press conference. 12:30, time for Eyewitness News headlines.
Thanks, Mandy. Good afternoon. The Special Investigating Unit is carrying out raids in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng as part of its probe into the alleged theft of 161 million rand from the UIF. Raids are underway at the UIF's Pretoria offices along with several other locations, including office buildings and private residences. The SIU says the money was allegedly siphoned from the UIF's COVID-19 Temporary Employer-Employee Relief Scheme. The Department of Basic Education has set up a national investigation task team to probe if there are any more matric exam irregularities. The move follows the detection of an exam paper leak in Gauteng. Minister Sivuya Kwagube says the team will start its work immediately to ensure the integrity of the 2025 exam is protected. And at least 23 million people in the country are considered poor. This is according to the lower bound poverty threshold by Stats SA. The 2023 figure is roughly 2.5 million less than since 2015. Stats SA released its revised poverty trends report today, the first update in nearly 8 years. Those are the headlines, this EWN and more at 1 or as it happens.
EWN Sport.
Good afternoon, I'm Tolagile Mganga. The Proteas go in search of a series-leveling win when they take on India in the second T20 at 3:30 this afternoon. South Africa's batting was less than impressive in the first game after they were all out for their lowest ever total in T20 cricket, which was 74. And batting coach Ashwell Prince is confident in their ability to do better in the second game.
There has been a lot of changes in terms of personnel with injury, etc. But we don't want to use them as excuses. Every match that we put 11 out there, we expect to win, regardless of the injuries. I think the stats speak for themselves. We need to find more consistency. And, obviously after the batting performance as such, that's one department that we'll have to improve on quickly.
Lightning and rain forced the abandonment of the third and final women's T20 match between South Africa and Ireland without a ball being bowled. South Africa won the three-match series 2-0 following comfortable victories by 105 runs and then 65. Attention now switches to the ODI series, which begins on Saturday at Buffalo Park. And Hugo Bruch says Tuesday's friendly against Ghana is sufficient pre-tournament practice for Bafana. That's ahead of the Africa Cup of Nations. South Africa are currently camping at the HPC Centre in Pretoria and will leave for the tournament in Morocco on Wednesday.
Why should we play now two games in November? We played how many? 8 games this year. The qualifiers for World Cup. Friendlies in June. I don't see a reason why we should have played now 2 games. And in November, again 2 games. Certainly taking in account that the majority of my group are players for Sundowns and the Pirates. They played enough games.
Tolagile Mganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
EWN Traffic.
Well, at this hour, if you're heading into Protea Glen, there's slow-moving traffic on the N12 westbound between the R554 Abu Bakr Drive and the R558. Also, if you're leaving and heading into the Joburg CBD, there's still slow-moving traffic on Main Reef Road between Anderson and Nasrec Road. Expect some delays in the Edenvale area traveling towards Bedfordview. This is R24 westbound between Edenvale Road and the Gilulis Interchange. Benoni leaving Brakpan. There's slow-moving traffic on Rangeview Road between Dube and Tom Jones. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
The pain of losing a loved one is never easy. It will leave you feeling overwhelmed. At Clientele, we understand that burying loved ones with dignity truly matters. Our funeral plans pay out cash within just 24 hours, and you receive 200 Rand airtime when you claim to make those important calls. Plus, we cover up to 13 people on one plan. SMS funeral to 31586. That's 31586. Clientele Life is an authorized FSP and licensed life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
This is Kyle's mom, entertaining the guests.
My son and I have been taking some dancing lessons.
Watch
and
this.
a 1 and a 2.
Ow!
Oopsies.
And this is Kyle's mom with 2 months free YouTube Premium plus 5 gigs free YouTube data plus 30 gigs once off.
It's showtime! With ad-free YouTube Premium. Kyle, hand out the logins, my boy. You get a password. You get a
Extra
password.
your summer with the Vodacom Red Plan and get extra Red rewards plus benefits on the VodaPay app when you sign up or upgrade, online and in store. T's and C's apply. Further together, Vodacom.
Small businesses are anything but small. They're the backbone of our communities, the dreamers, the doers, the ones who keep Mzansi moving forward. That's why 702 and Capitec Business Banking are putting them in the spotlight. Every Thursday between 6 and 8 p.m., catch Small Business Focus with Capitec, where we showcase the hustle, heart, and the secrets to thriving in today's economy. Your vision matters, and with Capitec, you're never building it alone. Small Business Focus with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Thursdays between 6 and 8 p.m. on 702. Capitec Bank is an authorized FSP 46669.
WhatsApp Mandy
on 072 702 1702.
Hi, Mandy. This is Sole here. I know this is still coming up. Don't you think it's still a problem that the SIU still requires political authority, what we call presidential decree, in order to investigate suspected crime? I mean, I see that they've, going into places and, uncovered some cruel stuff. But the fact is they would not have gone into those places without the president saying, yeah, sure, go in. What about the Minister of Health during COVID, Mkhize, the one who was accused, and a lot of information came out showing that he was involved in the stealing of 150 million rands. Are they going to go after him? Will they get political authority to go look deeper into Mkhize? Maybe Mkhize should be made to feel uncomfortable and step away from Parliament until his name is cleared, surely.
Hey, Solly, thank you so much for that. Yeah, I have to agree with you. I've always wondered, and maybe there's a good reason for it. I must actually just check with Kaiser Khanyago what the reason is. Why do they need presidential authority? There has to be a mandate that comes from the president for the SIU to investigate a particular case. And that does obviously raise concerns around potential independence, political intervention as well. I don't know about the case of Mkhize specifically as William Mkhize. I do recall there was an SIU investigation into that matter. But yes, I hear you. I completely understand why you would be concerned about that.
The Midday Report with Mandy Wiener is brought to you by Nedbank Commercial Banking. See money differently.
So a press conference earlier today by the Basic Education Minister, Siviwe Gwagube, announcing that there has been a breach in the Matric examination results process. So we've given you some detail about that, but just to remind you, the department revealing that breach was detected during the marking process. The maths paper 2 and physical science and English papers are of concern. The leak involves 26 matriculants from 7 schools. So let's find out more about this with Lukhanyo Vanka, who's the spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education. Lukhanyo, good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for your time today. Tell us what you know so far.
Good afternoon, Mandy, and good afternoon to your listeners. What we know so far is that on the 2nd of December, the Gauteng Department of Education officially alerted the National Department of Basic Education that there was an anomaly that was identified in the answer of one of the scripts of a learner who was writing the English Home Language Paper 2 examination. Their response or their answer was very closely mirroring or a close resemblance to the marking guideline answers that are provided. This indicated that this was an anomaly because our trained markers are trained to pick up such discrepancies. Upon further investigation, we identified that there were 5 other learners whose answers also closely resemble this marking guideline. And then upon investigation and interviewing the learners, we identified that they indeed had access to our marking guideline prior to writing this examination. That helped us to understand where the leak would have happened or where the compromise would have happened. Our marking guidelines are only issued to departments after the exam has been written. So if a learner has access to this guideline, it means that they had access to it before it left the DBE national offices. And that's where we focus our investigation. We've identified possible employees who would have had access to this particular marking guideline, and we're able to narrow it down to a set of employees. And we found that one of the employees actually has a child that is writing Matric this year, who is in grade 12. And when we interviewed both the parent and the child, we're able to identify that indeed this parent, who is a DBE employee, had taken our marking guideline and given that to their child. And they were assisted by another colleague of theirs who works in our examination center, who distributed this guideline to them via a USB storage device. And we have immediately suspended these employees. We have opened criminal cases against them for further investigation. And then we went out and to look at the scripts of the 8 learners and interviewed all of them again furthermore. And we've identified that there were in total 26 learners who had access to 1 to 7 of our question papers, which affect 3 subjects. That's English, natural sciences, as well as mathematics.
Lukhanyo, what is the impact on the learners, and does it affect the release of your results at all?
No, it shouldn't affect the release of the results, because we have identified that this was localized in these 4 individual schools amongst these 26 learners. And it's not even the entire schools that were involved in this. So it's a sprinkle of learners which we suspect are friends or are connected to each other. And as a result, we don't have a systems-wide breach of our exams. It's only particular learners in very particular schools in a very localized way. So, for example, to give you an indication of materiality, it's only about 4 schools out of over 7,000 examination centers or schools that wrote Matric exams this year. So it's very, very isolated.
Lukhanyo, thank you so much for explaining that for us. Lukhanyo Vanqa, spokesperson at the Department of Basic Education. Take a listen to the Minister, Siviwe Gwahube, making this announcement earlier.
Over 900,000 learners sat for the NSC exams. Our system picked up only 26 learners out of that number across 7 schools. And this is an important thing to remember, because we cannot allow the actions of a few to taint the almost 900,000 learners who sat for these exams, who put their heart and soul into working hard and making sure that they are showing up for their NSC exams. This is why we are having a zero tolerance to the corruption at with our DBE officials and those who are implicated here. And that's why we want to deal with this and want to localize it to the area in which it has occurred.
Well done to the Department of Basic Education. It sounds, from the way that that was explained to us by Lukhanyo, good work. It was initiated, it was picked up, it was investigated, they've resolved it. It is an isolated, localized incident, and the integrity of the Matric exams remain.
702.
The Midday Report with Mandy Wiener.
Let's walk the talk.
Statistics South Africa has released the Poverty Trends in South Africa report. It tells us that children and youth still bear the burden of poverty. Rasenga Maluleke is the Statistician General and joins us now. Statistician General, good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Mandy, and greet the listeners.
So talk us through what the findings are in terms of poverty and age.
Well, let us start off by saying that this is money metric poverty measure, where we last released the results in 2015. Now, about a decade later, we are releasing the poverty numbers. As it is, we do see that young people and 0 to 17, as well as those aged up to 34 years, tend to be much more vulnerable to poverty. 71% of those were falling below the lower bound poverty line. Why are we using the lower bound poverty line? It's because the National Development Plan tracks the lower bound poverty line as a way to measure poverty in South Africa.
Okay, so then you look at it in terms of age, in terms of sex or gender. You look at it in terms of geography. Give us an overview of what the findings are.
Let us look at one in terms of men-women split. Firstly, in our population, the size of our population says that 51% are women, yet 53% of those are experiencing poverty in lower bound. So you can see that there's a disproportionate representation of women in poverty. And when we have already touched on the issue of young people, but when we look at provinces, for example, your Limpopo, for example, was sitting way back in 2015 with the number of those poor at 66%. It has seen the largest decline. It dropped by about 20 percentage points. It's sitting at 47.6%. Yet it is still above the national average. So your provinces like Limpopo, Eastern Cape, Northern Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal constitute about 60% of those people that are poor. When we come to provinces like Gauteng and the Western Cape, they are below the national average, although we have seen a lot more decline in the Western Cape in terms of poverty than we have seen in Gauteng.
Overall, we have made progress in reducing poverty across all age groups, but the progress has not been equal, has it?
Certainly. If you look at where we were, in 2015, we said the number of those that were poor, lower bound, was 40%. When we released this figure, we recalibrated backwards. So what would have happened is that when we recalibrate, it's like rebasing and looking at new food items that are coming. It would have meant that in 2015, about 46.7% of the people would have been poor, lower bound. That figure has dropped by about 10 percentage points straight to 37.9%. So generally, poverty is declining, but it's driven more by access to grants, access to pension, old age pension, as well as what we see in remittances, because the majority of the people are Black Africans. About 93%, 93.6% to be exact, of the people that are poor are Black Africans, and the majority of them are accessing grants and in that population group.
Rasinga Maluleke, Statistician General, thank you very much. Just frightening, the extent of poverty in South Africa and how many millions of people live below the poverty line. All of that detailed in the Poverty Trends in the SA report.
So, Thames, what were you saying? Is Bongs more of a sports betting man or a casino player?
Doesn't matter what I think. Fact is, whatever he chooses, he's got a chance to scratch and win.
What do you mean?
Betway Scratch is back, bigger than ever, and giving everyone the chance to beg a share of a guaranteed 1.5 million rand in daily prizes, along with 4 brand new cars.
Whoa, it's the season of scratching and scoring. Only at betway.co.za.
Betway is licensed by the Mpumalanga Economic Regulator. No persons under the age of 18 are permitted to gamble. NRGP counseling line 0800 006 008. All events are fixed odds betting games.
The Outsurance pointsmen know that every car on the road carries a story. Like the lady on her way to work, listening to a love song on the radio. She's recreating the music video in her mind, with herself as the leading lady. The Outsurance pointsmen know it's not just a car in traffic, it's a concert on the move. Every story is different, and every story matters. That's why the Outsurance pointsmen have been doing what they do since 2005, in proud partnership with 702. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP.
702 and Cape Talk.
Book of the Week.
It's a Thursday, and on Thursdays on the Midday Report, we speak to the author of a local non-fiction book. And as we slide into December, we are looking at a memoir today. It's a powerful memoir, and it's from the maestro, the conductor Kutlwano Masote. And it is really a book full of stories. From the beginning to the end, it is this beautiful melody of music and storytelling. And as it says in the blurb, he pulls back the curtain to show us who he is entirely, navigating the intimate crescendos and quiet interludes of fatherhood, marriage, alcohol addiction, friendship, and music. We are reminded that no journey is without faults. Kutlwano Masote, you would have heard his name. I heard his name many times being advertised for various events. He joins us as an author today. Kutlwano, good afternoon, and thank you so much for this memoir.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Mandy.
So, for people who haven't picked up Imperfect Harmony yet, why did you decide that you were ready to write a memoir, and what was the story you wanted to tell?
So, I think living a life as an artist, especially, one gets to traverse and travel so many interesting corners of not just South Africa, but theaters all over the world, etc. And it was just about, trying to share some of these, what I think are quite unique experiences in a sense. It also emerged from, we could be driving with the family in a small town somewhere, and I'd say something like, guys, you'll see as we turn around this corner, there's a concert hall. Now, we once played here. They say, yes, Dad, you told us that the last time we were here. So I felt I had built up this kind of bank of stories and experiences that I shared with friends and especially my children. And on one Father's Day, they sat me down. They gave me a pen and a notebook and said, please write. We're tired of hearing the stories. And also, I was about to turn 50 when I started writing this book. This was 3 years ago. And I thought it's a good time to just, have a good laugh, a good reflection on what I think has been a charmed life with music.
I love that story, and well done to your kids. I think they deserve the flowers there. I love you speak about various teachers, your housemaster. You speak about various music teachers that you've had. You name them, and the impact of a good teacher, a good mentor, as a young person growing up in the environment that you grew up.
Yeah, so I mean, my great mentor was my father, of course. My first music teacher. He's a renowned man himself. His story really dwarfs mine, and I hope someday somebody will write it. He unfortunately passed on a few years ago. But yeah, everyone from Yehudi Manuel, Radu Aldulescu, who was a fantastic cellist in the 20th century, Marian Lewin in this country, Peter Ann Holcroft, and Dr. Margaret Nabarro. These are all people that one way or another just went a little bit beyond the call of duty, but I guess that's what teaching is. It's a calling, and and just showed me the way and encouraged me, and took me to opportunities that they didn't have to, but they thought I was deserving one way or another. And I think the key and part of why I wrote it was, and I say this to my children all the time, opportunities are often available. You must just be ready, awake, and when you recognize it, grab it, hold on to it.
The sense I got from reading the book was that many of your experiences involve bridging different worlds, classical and contemporary, personal and public, and about navigating those dualities.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I was in my early 20s in 1994, so that's kind of becoming an adult in those transitions, the rainbow years, as Desmond Tutu called us, the Rainbow Nation. So I call that the rainbow years, and those were very, very interesting, and curious, uncertain in a sense, but also full of hope. And so I wanted to put that down because we've forgotten, and it's not for the sake of nostalgia, but it's a sense of hope and belief that this nation, as it's already starting to do, can really turn a corner. And I think all of these changes that I'm talking about were reflected in my workspace, be it all the stories I tell about working with people like Zim Ngwawana, bridging the traditions of classical music, jazz, and indigenous music, and all those wonderful projects that we've done and continue to do. Now it's commonplace, but it wasn't always. So I really enjoyed that.
I was struck by how vulnerable you were in terms of your personal life, about alcohol addiction, about the state of your marriage and what it has been through as well. And I think it's important the way that you use storytelling for a lot of that, as you already have in this interview, but also the way that you use storytelling through music and how that shapes your identity.
I think it's part of being a creative person. We tell stories. That's what we do when we stand on stage and tune our violin and start to play the notes on the page. So I think it's a very familiar way for me to get across my message. But yeah, I mean, the vulnerability is also part of being creative. You have to trust, you have to be safe. You've got to let people in to the extent that you feel that, is appropriate. Yeah, and just picking up on alcohol abuse, whenever I say to people, so I stopped drinking completely in 2011, and people often ask me, and these are people I work with all the time, but why did you stop drinking? And I'd say something like, well, because I felt that I was drinking heavily and I couldn't, control it, so I just stopped. And they would often pause and say, but you don't drink more than the next person. And, so I talk about the insidious nature of alcohol abuse. I mean, it's been December now. If I were to open a beer now while I'm having my brunch, no one would frown upon it. Yet we do this all the time, and it becomes a runaway compulsion before we realize it. And, that spilled over into so many areas of my life. But, and as I say, I was always handling myself and doing well. I never missed a gig or was late because I had too much to drink. But after the gig, I often didn't get home in the state that I should have, and very often driving myself long distances from gigs in Pretoria, etc. And thank God I'm still here. But so I wanted to share that I've got children now one is almost 20 and the other is 22 nearly. Both boys. One is a musician. So I wanted to share that not only with my own progeny but with other young South Africans, because it's not unique to South Africa, but we do tend to overdo it.
And thank you for being so vulnerable around that. You've also long been an advocate for making classical music more accessible in South Africa, and that very much comes through in the book.
So as you may or may not know, I do a radio show on SAFM, the other talk station.
That's okay, we're all friends.
We're all friends, you're absolutely right. And so I do these weekend shows, and I've been in radio since 1999. Classic FM 2 stints, SAFM second stint, and it's part of my broadcasting sort of approach to invite others to this thing that sits so far away, sits in the Linda Auditorium in a Cape Town City Hall, and so some of these dialogues that we've been having with artists from different traditions and genres was exactly that, to make our genre more accessible. Last night I went to the most incredible concert with a young man that I speak about in the book, that I started off on music, Abel Salaj. And it's hard to say what is he. He's a cellist, he's a singer, but he's a storyteller through his craft. And it's easily the best thing I've ever seen, music on stage. There's another show today, I think it's sold out, but I'm sure they'll let you in if you don't have a ticket. And this is where the world is going. Yeah. And I think people like Abel, just by seeing a guy from South Africa in dreadlocks holding a cello, singing, throat singing, playing the most gorgeous cello lines, very cultured in a classical sense. And I think this is where we are now. And South Africa sits very much at the cutting edge of that.
Well, Kutlwano, thank you so much for sharing your story in this book. Definitely an excellent December read, inspiring in so many ways. Kutlwano Masote is his name. He is a conductor, but so much more than that. The book is called Imperfect Harmony.
Last December, you put in new floors. Come New Year's, your visitors were out the door. And the new floor went from fresh tiles to don't step on a crack or you'll break umama's back. Now, abantu bazothini when they see the kids playing the Squid Game's hopscotch on those same cracked tiles from last year. Avoid the embarrassment this festive. Make smarter decisions for your home. Visit Cash Build for quality tiles, adhesive and tools at the lowest prices. Cash Build.
The crazy store's got deals galore and everything you need, from tinsel presents, wrapping, and a star for your Christmas tree. We've got all sorts of games and sports, many toys to buy. Stationery, arts and crafts, come on and don't be shy. No need to panic shop, we're your one-stop Christmas spot. Your table will be dressed and you will not be stressed. When Christmas Eve is here, you'll want to sing and cheer. I got everything at the crazy store and I can't wait for next year.
Hey, you never know what you might find this Christmas.
The Midday Report.
The Midday Report with Mandy Wiener on 702 and Cape Talk was brought to you by Nedbank Commercial Banking. Think bigger, think Nedbank Commercial Banking. And this Eyewitness News is brought to you by Vouch. Hassle-free insurance is possible with your Vouch advisor. Vouch SA is an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply. It's 1 o'clock.
This is EWN.
The SIU raids buildings and residences in COVID-19 corruption probe and a task team to investigate the extent of a Matric exam paper leak.